people did something, said a freshman congresswoman from Minnesota, to support and justify the creation of CARE. Today I am here to respond to you exactly who did what to whom. Madam, objectively speaking, we know who and what was done. There is no uncertainty about that. Why your confusion? On that day, 19 Islamic terrorist members of Al-Qaeda killed over 3,000 people and caused billions of dollars of economic damage. Is that clear? But as to whom? I was attacked. Your relatives and friends were attacked. Our constitutional freedoms were attacked. And our nation's founding on Judeo-Christian principles were attacked. That's what some people did. Got that now?
After the tragic attacks of September 11th, 2001, the Council on American Islamic Relations, known as CARE, rose to prominence as a voice for Muslim Americans during a time of widespread fear and confusion. The organization was founded on a clear belief that justice and security should always exist side by side. That in the weeks and months after September 11th, the nation grieved deeply, but along with sorrow came suspicion. Many innocent people suddenly found themselves judged not by their actions, but by their identity. CARE's formation was a response to that painful reality, recognizing how easily civil rights can be tested when a nation is hurting and afraid. Years later, a single comment from Representative Ilhan Omar, the now famous phrase, "Some people did something," reopened old wounds. While her words were intended to refer to the attackers, many Americans felt they downplayed the horror of that day. The reaction reignited passionate debate about how the country remembers 9/11 and what lessons it still carries. Once again, the same questions resurfaced.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Clause 2A.1 of Rule 9, I seek recognition to give notice of my intent to raise a question of the privileges of the House. The form of the resolution is as follows.
Recognized.
Censuring Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota. Whereas elected members of Congress take an oath to bear true faith and allegiance to the United States without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. Whereas Representative Ilhan Omar took an oath of allegiance to the United States upon becoming a citizen, declaring, "I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty, of whom or which I have heretofore been a subject or citizen."
The congressional statement that followed was meant to leave no room for doubt about who was responsible for the attacks on September 11th. The Speaker made it clear that the perpetrators were 19 extremists connected to Al-Qaeda, who hijacked passenger planes and caused the deaths of more than 3,000 innocent people. Beyond the tragic loss of life, their actions brought lasting emotional pain and severe damage to the nation's economy and sense of security. The statement went on to say that these individuals were not just attacking people or buildings. They were striking at the very foundation of what the United States stands for: freedom, faith, and the rights guaranteed under its Constitution. The Speaker underscored that this was more than a violent act. It was an attempt to challenge the nation's core values and the moral framework that has guided America for generations. In closing, the message urged unity and remembrance, reminding citizens that even in tragedy, the country's strength lies in defending both its people and its principles, legislative process, and the constant effort to preserve trust in those elected to lead. Warning.
As on January 27, 2024, Representative Omar gave remarks at an event in Minneapolis in which she made treasonous statements. Whereas Representative Omar said she has spoken to many Somalians who asked her to intercede for the Somali government by pressuring the United States government into certain actions. Whereas Representative Omar assured the Somalians she spoke to, the U.S. government will only do what Somalians in the U.S. tell them to do. They will do what we want and nothing else. They must follow our orders, and that is how we will safeguard the interest of Somalia. Whereas Representative Omar continued, For as long as I am in U.S. Congress, Somalia will never be in danger. Its waters will not be stolen by Ethiopia or others.
On the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives, a congresswoman from Georgia stood before her colleagues to introduce a resolution calling for the censure of Representative Ilhan Omar. The Speaker of the House recognized her under Rule 9, a procedure that allows members to raise urgent matters affecting the rights and dignity of Congress itself. With a calm but deliberate tone, she began reading the resolution aloud, her words carrying the weight of the chamber's tradition and authority. She reminded everyone that every member of Congress takes an oath, a solemn promise to uphold the Constitution and remain faithful to the United States above all else. The reading served as a pointed reminder that public service is not just about representing a district, but about protecting the nation's integrity. Each oath, she stressed, is more than a formality. It is a commitment to unity, accountability, and unwavering loyalty to the country and its guiding principles. As her words echoed through the chamber, the moment reflected the deep sense of duty that defines the legislature.
In comfort, knowing I am here to protect the interest of Somalia from inside the U.S. system. Whereas George Washington warned in his farewell address of 1796 to guard against the impostures of pretended patriotism, and further declared citizens by birth or choice of a common country, that country has a right to concentrate your affections. The name of American, which belongs to you in your national capacity, must always exalt the just pride of patriotism more than any appellation derived from local discrimination.
The final part of the resolution drew upon the words of George Washington's 1796 farewell address, reminding Congress of his warning to be vigilant against the impostures of pretended patriotism. It used this historic message to stress that true citizenship, whether by birth or naturalization, carries a shared duty to place the interests of the United States above all others. The resolution argued that Representative Ilhan Omar's reported remarks appeared to go against this core ideal, suggesting that they reflected a breach of the loyalty expected from every public servant. On that basis, it called for formal censure, a public declaration of disapproval within the House. Under its terms, Representative Omar would be required to stand before the chamber while the Speaker read the resolution aloud. It also proposed removing her from two influential committees, Budget and Education and the Workforce. The tone of this section was serious and reflective, linking the action to a long-standing American belief that allegiance to the nation is a matter of principle, not preference, a responsibility that transcends politics and time, that the title American must always rise above any regional, religious.
Whereas these statements by Representative Omar clearly violate the oath she took as an elected member of Congress to defend and protect the United States Constitution. Whereas Representative Omar has exhibited the treasonous tendencies George Washington warned about, and her actions must be condemned by all members of Congress who adhere to the oath they took upon assuming office. And whereas by openly admitting her efforts to advance Somalia's interests,
the resolution strongly emphasized that loyalty to the United States is the cornerstone of every oath sworn by public officials. It reminded members of Congress that those who pledge to uphold the Constitution are bound not only by law, but also by moral duty to protect it without compromise. The text accused Representative Ilhan Omar of breaking that trust, arguing that her reported statements suggested a divided commitment between her role as a U.S. lawmaker and foreign interests. The Speaker warned that ignoring such behavior could create a dangerous precedent, one where elected officials might feel free to act on behalf of other nations while benefiting from the authority of American democracy. This section was written not just as a charge against a single member, but as a cautionary message for the institution as a whole, that loyalty to the United States must always be clear, complete, and unconditional to strengthen its argument. The resolution once again turned to the words of President George Washington's 1796 farewell address. Washington had urged future generations to be wary of pretended patriotism and to resist the pull of divided loyalties, warning that any affection for foreign powers could threaten the unity and independence of the republic itself. The reader highlighted George Washington.
Using her position as a United States representative, Representative Omar has revealed herself to be a foreign agent acting on behalf of a foreign government. Now therefore be it resolved that Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota be censured. Representative Ilhan Omar forthwith present herself in the well of the House of Representatives.
Or ethnic identity. By drawing on this powerful historical message, the resolution sought to connect Representative Ilhan Omar's alleged remarks to a broader, timeless lesson that a nation's unity and strength depend on a shared sense of loyalty and purpose. This reference to Washington's words added moral weight and historical depth, framing the issue not as political or personal, but as a defense of the enduring principle that allegiance to the United States must remain whole and unwavering. The resolution ended with a firm call for action. It demanded that Representative Omar be formally censured by the House of Representatives and required to stand in the well of the chamber as the Speaker read the resolution aloud. This moment was described as both a consequence and a symbolic act, a public acknowledgement of accountability before her peers. In closing, the document underscored that such steps were not about partisanship, but about reaffirming the solemn duty of every lawmaker to honor the trust placed in them by the American people. The resolution also called for Representative Ilhan Omar's immediate removal from 2 influential committees.
Ilhan Omar be censured with the public reading of this resolution by the Speaker, and Representative Ilhan Omar be and is hereby removed from the Committee of the Budget and the Committee on Education and the
Budget and Education and the Workforce. These steps, it stated, were necessary to protect the dignity of Congress and reinforce the moral standards that guide its work. The tone throughout remained serious, measured, and resolute, reminding every lawmaker that holding public office is not a privilege without cost. It carries responsibility, integrity, and the weight of example. As the reading neared its conclusion, the Speaker's voice shifted from criticism to conviction. The final lines invoked 3 guiding principles: faith, freedom, and responsibility. Faith symbolized the nation's shared moral foundation. Freedom represented the essential right at the core of the American promise, and responsibility stood as the duty that ensures liberty is never taken for granted. The resolution warned that these values come under threat whenever those in power place personal or foreign interests above the collective good. When the chamber fell silent, the meaning of the moment was unmistakable. This was about more than one member's remarks. It was a reaffirmation of what it means to serve under the American flag. The act of censure was portrayed as a reminder
after 9/11, because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil